Funded Today Nation, welcome back to the Funded Today podcast, and we've got another really great episode for you today. As promised, once again, we're bringing on someone from outside our company, one of our past clients, Rob Peck of AquaVault Kickstarter success and Shark Tank acclaim. And remember, if you missed last week's episode and you want even more stories from our past Kickstarter clients and stories from the tank, be sure to listen to Tammy Rant and her remarkable rise to success with Tush Baby. And now for today's special guest. We heard from a woman last week, and now we wanted to hear a similar success story, but this time from the perspective of a male. He's got a very unique one, and I think you're going to love it. So are you ready to listen and learn directly from an actual Kickstarter creator who raised over $200 on a project starting from scratch? What about learning more about how to absolutely crush a Shark Tank appearance? Or maybe are you just a little bit more curious about the day-to-day hustle and grind of entrepreneurship? If so, today's episode is for you. Let's get started.
The Funded Today podcast is brought to you by fundedtoday.com. Funded Today is a premier marketing and video agency. From startups to crowdfunding to Amazon and beyond, Funded Today has helped their clients generate hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. If you'd like help launching or growing your business, visit www.fundedtoday.com to speak with one of their experts.
Welcome back to the show. I am Zach Smith.
And I'm Thomas Alvord.
And just another quick reminder to download our ultimate crowdfunding success guide, the UCSG, at fundedtoday.com/guide if you've not already done so. This is the best guide on crowdfunding, and we'll stand behind it 100%. And the best part, right now it's still 100% free. Download it, read through it, and let us know if it makes all the difference in bringing your next big idea to life. And now for today's guest. When Rob and his team first came up with the idea for AquaVault, they were on a mission to solve an extremely common problem that nearly everyone seems to encounter at least once a year at the beach, pool, or water park. Where do I put my valuables when I leave or go for a swim? After they had their stuff swiped from their own lounge chairs at the pool, enough was enough. They thought, there really should be something you should put your valuables into so you don't have to constantly worry while you're trying to have fun and relax. So they quickly created AquaVault, and just a short little bit of time later, the rest is history. Together with Funded Today, they raised over $200,000 to bring AquaVault to life on Kickstarter. Then they leveraged that crowdfunding success on Kickstarter by making a deal with Damon John on ABC's hit TV show Shark Tank. And they have grossed over $7 million in product sales now. Furthermore, they listened to their backers' feedback and invented an even better, newer version that is perfect for traveling called the FlexSafe. This allows you to lock up your valuables and attach this particular safe to any fixed object and relax without worrying that people are snooping around stealing your belongings. Wow, that is quite the story and the journey. Rob, welcome to the Get Funded Today podcast. How are you doing today? We are so glad to have you with us.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's nice to be on the show. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I'd love to tell you a little bit more about our product invention story as well as our Shark Tank experience.
Yeah, let's do that. And like we kind of want to do with every single guest, before we kind of dive into the business and the Shark Tank and the Kickstarter and all of those details, how about for our listeners, Funded Today Nation, let's start out with a couple fun facts. We call it 3 fun facts. So you and your founding partners, you were all friends and you graduated from the same graduating class at Hofstra University. So was this idea brewing for a long time?
You see, it's an idea that's always come up every time we've traveled together, which we've done in college, and then a few times after college before we actually started the business. You know, you're sitting by the beach and pool and you get all your stuff taken from you, or you worry about your stuff, or you're turning your head every couple of seconds wondering if your stuff's still going to be there. And then, a few years later, we were at a wedding, and unfortunately, we came back to our chairs and all of our stuff was gone, like many others come to find out during the same, day at the beach. So we kind of decided to say, enough's enough. Let's look for some products out there or see how we can maybe turn this into a business. And there AquaVault was born.
And you pretty much in that research saw that there was nothing else out there. And then you said, well, I need to solve this problem, right?
Correct. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, backing up even further, you've kind of been this serial entrepreneur since you were at the ripe old age of 11 years old. Tell me a little bit about this starting, buying and selling motorbikes and how you fix them up. It actually kind of reminds me of one of my former business partners and what he did with motorized scooters.
It's something that's in your blood. So from a very young age, you kind of know whether or not you want to, take those jobs out there working for somebody else, or if you kind of want to, take it under the reins and do something yourself. So when I was like 10 or 11 years old, I had an opportunity where I was able to trade a couple of bicycles I had for a beat up old dirt bike. And so I took that dirt bike and put some new spark plugs in it, took the fenders off, painted them up, and then resold it and made like $600 or $700. So from that day on, I feel like entrepreneurship was just the path for me.
How serious did you take that business? How many did you end up selling before you said,
I turned that dirt bike into a 3-wheeler, and then I turned that 3-wheeler into a car. and the car got me about $4,000, and that was within a 3-month period. So I had a few $1,000s in my pocket as an 11, 12-year-old, which was a lot of the time.
And that's awesome. I was going around when I was 11, I think, mowing lawns and washing cars, and I thought that was good to make $50 a day. But dang,
I love that.
You beat me.
Now, Rob, perhaps the craziest fact about you is, tell me about swimming with Siamese crocodiles. I had to look up what Siamese crocodiles were, first of all. I didn't even know what they were. So
Yeah, neither did I. And so I was doing some traveling after college and just traveling through Southeast Asia. And I found myself up in the mountains. And first we get up to this tree house, and it's up in the trees. And I'm like, why do we get to sleep up there? And they're like, oh, so the tigers don't get you. And I thought they were all joking. And comes to light that that's actually the truth. And the next day they had this old, bridge/cable car that kind of went across this muddy water river. And they thought it was funny if I took some bike handles and went in the water, and I didn't think nothing of it. And then next morning, we're doing a little bit of canoeing through there, and long and behold, there's a few crocodiles right where I was. So it's pretty scary, but one of those experiences that once you live through, kind of, I guess, makes you a little stronger.
Never want to do it again, but a good story to tell.
Are they dangerous?
Yeah, they're just as dangerous. They're probably not as dangerous as some of the larger Nile crocodile breeds, but it's crocodile nonetheless.
So, Rob, just understanding these 3 facts about you, we can probably get a lot of a picture of how AquaVault comes to be. But just for our listeners and to recap things, and I know I gave a little bit of an intro at the start, but give me a little bit more of the detailed story of how you brought this idea to life, and try to put yourself in the shoes of maybe our listeners who might have an idea, but they don't have the foggiest idea where they go next. What did you do? How did you, your product is amazing. $7 million in sales now. You've made a deal on Shark Tank. I think for a lot of people, you were like the American dream come to fruition. So walk us all the way back to when this was an idea.
It's a lot about being persistent. We were at a wedding, and the 3 of us were together. We got our stuff stolen, like we mentioned earlier, and just realized that there's a huge problem here, and there's not a lot of people addressing the problem. So once we got back, we started drawing some different ideas on a napkin. I had a few years of engineering background, so I kind of knew how to use CAD software, and so I started just doing some designs in there, and found out it wasn't that difficult to take those designs in a certain file format and then electronically send them to somebody else's 3D printer, and then for a cost they would send me plastic pieces back in the mail. So at that point you can start adding different accessories to them, find some different locks to them, and we were just literally building products from scratch, just with pieces we could find at the hardware store and things that we got shipped back to us. So
what was your cost initially doing this back and forth mail shipping of plastic parts, so to speak?
So you can spend anywhere between probably like $500 and a few thousand, depending on the volume of plastic that's being printed and the size of it. So I think ours costs right around $1,000 to get the top and the bottom printed out, and then just the time and the hardware store, and just trying to source other parts of this that'll fit in correctly, and then after that, all you got is a rough prototype. You don't got anything pretty. It's nothing that is going to sell any buyers or make you money. But it was enough where we decided, hey, let's go to this inventor trade show. So me and my buddy kind of like packed up in our car, and we drove off to Pittsburgh. We went to Impex, which is an inventor trade show, and we had this plastic AquaVault that we printed off the computer. We're showing it to Bed Bath & Beyond buyers at this trade show, and we're like, oh my goodness, what are we doing here? So I got so nervous the first time we were showing the product, I actually dropped it on the floor, and the plastic we were using just kind of cracked a little bit. So I was literally holding it together, presenting these buyers, and it was just our initial experience into the market. And from there, we were able to find some manufacturing contacts and some engineering contacts, and we were able to go about the right path of getting an actual product created.
Oh, yeah, I love the hustle. I love that story. You started out with just a couple thousand, and then you took it one step further and one step further and one step further. And then what happens at this point? When do you say, okay, there's enough here? Why crowdfunding? What made you think to go to Kickstarter, and how did you run into us? How did all that happen?
Crowdfunding was kind of like the next big thing for us, because we understood that we're going to be able to leverage the power of pre-orders to kind of help us manufacture and make our products, and help us kind of almost fund our first production run. So, we understood that if we could get the right audience, and we could, show them the product and get them to understand what we're trying to do, that we might be able to turn these people into not only early purchasers of the product, but brand ambassadors that might go out and tell their friends and family about what we're trying to do.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So it was kind of simultaneous to this whole process where you just knew about crowdfunding, you knew that's where you wanted to go?
I mean, we knew about crowdfunding. We didn't know if we were ready for crowdfunding yet, being kind of still a young company with just an idea. So, we tried it anyway, and we were able to take our product and, get it in front of these people and be quite successful with you guys helping us out in our Kickstarter campaign.
Walk us through that preparation. How did you get prepared for a Kickstarter, and how much of your product was actually a finished product? Yes, we could ship this to a backer before you began. Did you actually use the prototype that cracked on the floor of the conference that you went to, of the trade show that you went to? Or at that point, had you developed things even further along before you crowdfunded?
Yeah, no, we developed things much further along before we started crowdfunding. We actually had, working production sample units. We were selling some product on our website. We had interest from buyers. We had some hotel groups buying it. Crowdfunding kind of came in when we decided to, start our second product, and that was, the FlexSafe Plus. And that's what we kind of tried to leverage, the consumer market into saying, hey, here's a product that might work for, everyday people who are traveling and might want to buy their own.
And it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, it worked out great.
So I do want to talk about that just a little bit. A lot of our listeners obviously want to do a crowdfunding campaign, or they want to figure out how to take that next step with that napkin idea or prototype or CAD design or whatever it may be. So Kickstarter tips, tricks, takeaways, what did you learn? But before we do that, what I always like to do with anytime we have a guest on the show, I have to ask this: how was it working with Funded Today? What did you like? What did you learn? How did that process go as well?
I mean, I'm going to say this. I'm not saying it because we're on the podcast, but we did a lot of investigating into marketing companies that would be able to help us with our crowdfunding efforts. We talked to numerous agencies, and we found that Funded Today was one of the companies that was willing to, not only give us a lot of hands-on help and walk us through the process and what it's going to take to launch a successful campaign, but put their money where their mouth is. Say, hey, listen, we're going to be able to do all this for you, and we'll take a cut of your success, which was at that point really intriguing to us. Turned out that you guys came through and were able to deliver on everything you promised.
Oh, I love that. Well, I appreciate that, Rob. It was our pleasure working with you as well. And I love to look back on this. I mean, we haven't chatted for a long time, and now to see how far you've come, even since crowdfunding, has been pretty remarkable. But for the people just starting out, what are your tips and takeaways? I know you've got a pretty obvious one that, you get here 100 times. Don't give up or don't quit. Give me a little bit more on that. What does that mean to you, and how does that apply to your journey as an entrepreneur?
As you're starting your journey and you're an entrepreneur and you got products, it's going to come with a lot of headaches, and it's going to come with a lot of, financial restrictions. Is probably the hardest thing to get through. And that's, hey, it's going to cost a lot of money to develop a product. And it's going to cost a lot of money to, ship the product. And it's going to cost a lot of money to market the product. Every time that you kind of think that you're taking a few steps forward, sometimes you feel like it's 10 steps backwards, but you just got to be confident that you're on the right path and that you're doing the right things. And if you hold them long enough and get in front of, the right people, that it's going to be successful at the end of the day.
How do you know that you're confident that you're on the right path, as you said? Did it ever go through your mind that, man, I've put in $10,000, $20,000, whatever it was, before you decided to do a crowdfunding campaign and said, let's see if the masses want this thing? Did you ever have the thought, what if this doesn't work?
You're never really confident that it's going to work because you're going to be doubting yourself the whole time. But for us, taking the chance and taking some of our savings that we had saved up and putting it into an idea was freedom. It was a way to start a company and to work with your friends and, try to help people solve a common problem that relates to everybody. But I mean, for the most part, the one thing that gave us the most confidence is for all the trade shows we've done and all the groups that we've, gone and displayed at, we've never once had somebody come up and say, hey, this is a bad idea. You guys should not be doing this. Like, everybody saw the product and you could almost see a light bulb going off in people's heads saying, wow, I wish I thought of that. Or, wow, that is something that I feel every time I travel to the beach, the pool, or the water park. And that's kind of what built our confidence and said, hey, we're onto something. We're doing things right. Let's just keep chugging along.
I love that. It's that pre-validation that we talk about quite a bit as well, where you can kind of get that feedback along the way. That we call it the triple F, the friends, family, and fools. And you even took it to the level of the fools. And the fools are just people who've never heard of you before, but still think it's a good idea. I should have thought of this. That was my good idea. And it's awesome that you recognized that and kept pushing through the different problems that you had. But tell me a little bit about that. What problems did you have along this journey? Obviously, when you're on a podcast, we can tell the the beautiful story, the rags to riches, the make it exciting, but what does it actually look like in the day-to-day grind? And what were some of the problems you pushed through, and how did you resolve them? And what would you give as advice to somebody who is coming up with an idea, and maybe it's similar to the type of idea that you have, in the sense that it's made out of a certain plastic, or it's made out of a certain mesh, or whatnot, or you know what I mean? Like, where can you guide them properly so that they can maybe not make the same mistakes you make, and have success even quicker?
Well, number one, max out your inbox every day. Google allows you to send 500 emails a day. So we were out there sending 500 emails a day to every publisher, every press contact, every hotel group we could, come up with an email for. And we were literally just Googling emails to send more emails through Google. And that was a way where we were just playing a number game at that point. We had our product, we had, something that could have been real. Now we just got to make people know about it.
And it was 500 times 3 because you had 3 people. So 1,500 emails a day. I love that.
1,500 emails a day for the first year.
I need to bring you on for our sales team and tell them what that looks like.
And what's funny is if we knew back then about just managing the contacts and putting them all in like some sort of customer relationship software, that would have been great. But we were just blindly emailing, and we didn't understand any of the tips and tricks that people get nowadays. I mean, you hear about all these things, but it's hard to really understand all these tips until you start going through it and learning from your mistakes.
There's something to be said about just going and doing what you did, though. Just get an email and start telling people, look, we have the best idea you've ever not heard of, and you probably would have thought of it yourself once I explain it to you. Can I please tell you more? And just sending that out to thousands of people. I love it.
And we were doing that from the car as we'd all be driving up and down, the Jersey Shore and the coast of Florida and through Myrtle Beach. And we'd be driving around, stopping at every surf shop, trying to just sell 6 or 7 pieces to get them on the shelf. And then we'd all be in the car maxing out those inboxes as we're in the car. So
I love it.
Long days and long weeks to get to where we are here. And even once you get to a level where you're in front of the masses and selling a lot of product, comes with its whole next group of problems as well. As growth is expensive, and growth is, compound all those problems as you do more sales. And then you just got to figure out ways to, manage those problems and try to curb some of the problems that you can forecast when you can.
Is it inventory related problems when you get to a level that you're at, or what's the biggest thing that you tend to find? Capital problems?
It's a combination of both, because if we want to do X number of $1 million in sales, then we know how many units already we're going to, need to produce for those sales. And some of our customers, our bigger customers, require, 90-day payment terms. So we can finance those POs and figure it out, at the same time. Making large commitments to inventory when they're half sold is somewhat scary. So you just kind of got to take the leap and find creative ways to work with your terms with your vendors and figure out what's a plan that's going to work for everybody, so everybody can profit along the way, but do it in a way where they're sharing in your wealth.
Yeah. What have you found is the best solution there, or is it an ongoing battle? Do you have a simple, like, I wish every vendor operated like this, or here's the one that works the best for us, or maybe somebody like Damon John helps to mitigate that risk on your part? Or what, in your ideal world, what does that look like in terms of terms for both parties so it's a win-win?
As long as you're extremely confident with your product and your company and your team, don't be afraid to go out to the traditional banks at the decent interest rates and leverage what you have so that you can build what is going to work. And at the same time, while you're doing that, make sure you find good capital partners if you can, negotiate good terms with your suppliers and warehouses and shipping companies to make sure that, the cash flow is not going to dry up before, the money can be turned around to the next run. And make sure you're planning, accordingly for your, 12, 24, and 36 months out. So you kind of understand what you might need so that you can always, mentally work towards those numbers as you grow.
Do you ever feel like it's important to pay yourself a salary in the company, or is it all built on a long-term, let's grow this thing to X and then we'll take a dividend? Or how do you manage the idea that you need to feed yourself as you go about creating this big company?
So coming from being an entrepreneur my whole life and working in government contracting prior to this and other ventures that I've done in the past, I always put the company first. Pay yourself what you can when you can, but make sure the company is surviving. Otherwise, you're going to jeopardize your future. And a lot of people will tell you different things, or some people might agree with what I say there, but the company's what's going to, support the future. So you got to make sure that's healthiest first.
And have you found a good balance for being able to take care of yourself as well? Because I would imagine you're full-time all in with this, right?
Yeah. This is our full-time gigs right now. So yeah, you got to find that balance and find out what's best for you.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Now, your last one that we talked about before this episode, I wanted you to kind of dig into a little bit more, but what do you mean by let people surprise you with their ideas? Is this talking about what backers gave you feedback on, or is this something more than that?
Yeah, well, I mean, when you're looking for new product ideas or you're developing a product, put it in the hands of people that might not know anything to do with what you're doing, and see what they say, see what feedback they have, see what issues they come up with, because these are things that can be easily oversighted when you're trying to do some initial R&D on products, and it really helps you kind of hone in and try to eliminate some future problems by addressing what seems to be simple things right away.
What was the biggest example or takeaway you found with your own product that you followed this advice with yourself, and how did it help you?
For our current product, the FlexSafe, it was something as simple as the locking mechanism. Like as simple as I think pushing the button in and changing the combo and letting it go is for a reset mode. We found out that half the people out there that we tested certain locking mechanisms on had trouble with it, and we couldn't figure out why people were having trouble with it, whether it was the instructions or if it was too easy. So initially when we were testing the lock, it turned out that this one locking mechanism, although it works fine if you're using it fine, we found that some people do have trouble with it. So from that point, instead of going all in on that design that we thought we were going to run, we kind of changed it and keep making it better and better, so that we can make sure that our reviews and our customer satisfaction is as high as it can be, because that's number one in the marketplace nowadays.
And you learned that through crowdfunding, and you caught that problem before you ever went into making your first minimum order quantity and all of that sort of thing.
Correct. Yeah. So you'll see, even in our crowdfunding campaign, you'll notice that the pictures and the prototypes we're using were slightly different than the ones that we actually released. And the reason for that was letting the customers surprise us with some of their own feedback.
And this is an example of where they were even happier with the product that they received compared to what they were told they were going to get on Kickstarter, which is, I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
Such a good example. Now, the last thing you talk about with regards to tips, tricks, and takeaways is leading by example. What do you mean by that in terms of making meaningful bonds with your working partners and just earning that level of respect with whoever you're working with? How do you do that while also, I guess, playing devil's advocate here, the whole saying of we need to work on our business, not in our business, if we're going to grow it to as big as possible? How do you balance that?
Well, it's tough because in one aspect, you need to be the boss and you need to put people in places that can do the right thing. And that kind of goes back to what we said before about letting people surprise you. Put people in certain positions, whether it's customer service or accounting and things like that, and let them come up with their own processes and flows and see how that might work better than if you were to teach them to do something similar to that. On the other hand, you got to understand those processes, and you got to understand customer service, and you got to understand how to run your marketing and what's new in marketing tactics and stuff by doing it and seeing it and feeling it. And then you can kind of go and teach the people that you're ultimately going to hold responsible for those jobs, and then let them kind of surprise you in other ways to come up with something on their own. But at the same time, when you're teaching people these certain tactics or tricks that you have, it really shows them that you care about what you're doing and how it's done.
Yeah, I love that. I heard a story actually not too long ago about a pretty famous builder, and obviously he didn't understand every single aspect of the different pieces of he built like really big buildings, and he didn't understand all the different pieces of what was happening. But before a big meeting where they were going to announce this really fancy new building in a big city, he took the architect aside before they were going to come out and talk about the plans, and he said, "Hey, I want to see some things." And the architect rolled out the plans, and he pointed to the windows, and he's like, "Look at the underlayment of the windows, and look at the way that we're going to wrap these windows. If we don't do these windows right, then that's the biggest problem." And he got into all of these little details. And then this guy gets out and he gives a speech to the company after he's talked to the architect, and he talks about the windows, and he's able to talk like an expert about the windows for probably 10 or 15 minutes. And then everybody there is like, holy cow, this guy's building this $100 million building. And he even understands the underlayment of how we're going to protect the windows. And they could really get behind him, even though that might have been the only thing he understood of the whole building, you know? So I like
It's kind
that
of
a
like an
lot.
old
So
saying I heard
that
when
makes sense.
when I was younger. You don't have to know everything. You just have to know a little bit more than the guy you're talking to. Yeah. So if you can learn a little bit about everything and just understand enough to be able to surprise people, it'll take you quite a ways.
I like that. Last question for Kickstarter. Is there anything you wish you would have done that you're going to do the next time you do a Kickstarter that you didn't do the first time?
That's a great question. So the next time that we're going to be running crowdfunding, we are going to put a little bit more emphasis into building out the specs of the product a little bit better ahead of time so we can really show people the features in an interactive way rather than more of a creator's way. We've noticed that with crowdfunding over the past few years and watching campaigns, there's a lot of repeat companies going on there, and they're kind of using everything
Mm-hmm.
that they've learned in the past, and they're just making their campaigns look a lot cooler to the customers, which seems to work really well.
There's something to be said about once you have a little bit of money, you can keep making it better and better as you go along as well.
It's really just about the learning experience too. The money helps. You can put more into the campaigns, but just understanding the comment boards and what people are saying and how they say it and how we can better react to those people and customers and potential customers is what's really going to be the game changer.
I love that. All right. Now, for our listeners, this is probably their favorite part of these types of episodes, Rob. Everybody wants to know about your Shark Tank experience. They want to hear things that maybe they haven't heard or things that they don't see. Like, obviously, when you see the 10 or 15-minute experience that you have, how long is it actually? What actually happens? How does it go down? How much of it is real TV and how much of it is reality TV? Give us that as much as you're able. Obviously, I know you have some different NDAs and things that I'm sure you probably can't fully reveal, but as much as you can, give us the raw Shark Tank experience that you and your team had as you went through that.
I mean, to start off, there was, for the season 6 that we were on, there was 48,000 applicants to the show that season,
Wow.
and they filmed less than 100, and even less than that were actually ones that were edited correctly and made it onto TV. So right off the bat, the odds are just entirely stacked against you. So so me and my partners were able to come together and try to show this problem that happens to everybody, and the producers loved it. And when we finally got our chance to go in and pitch to the Sharks, we were in there for, probably about an hour and 20 minutes. They cut that down to 7-8 minutes, which is pieces of actually what the conversation was. Sometimes we think, hey, they could have cut this a lot better, or they could have used this and made it better. But ultimately, we went in, we got a deal, we did our thing. They were really nice to us the whole way through, which is always, reassuring.
Yeah.
The experience, like, it doesn't stop after Shark Tank. It's kind of like, drags on, ways after that too. We were lucky enough to get an update, 6 months to a year
I saw
later,
that.
and then be on a show called Beyond the Tank after that, which was great.
Was it pretty much exactly as you see when you're on the TV show? Was that what the experience was? Just cut down to that 7 to 8 minutes, or was it a lot different being there? And what did you do to try to get on TV? Was that in your mind and in your partner's minds, like, hey, we need to behave this way, or we need to act this way so that we have the best chance of getting on TV? Or was it more just, let's pitch this product and see what happens because we already know we have a great thing?
It's kind of one of those things where, we didn't know if we were ready for Shark Tank. We'd have liked to be on there with more sales in our pocket and have more compelling story. But, when the opportunity arises, it's just something that you can't not jump on regardless. So we thought we'd get chewed apart with our little sales and small company at this point. It was still a hobby for us. We weren't full time in this, but we decided to go out there and jump on it and go and pitch our company to the Sharks. And the few days before the show, while we're kind of waiting in the hotel, waiting to, see like when our pitch date's going to be, we just kind of practiced our points over and over again across LA while we're waiting. And luckily we got in there and, didn't stumble or, didn't answer any questions in a negative manner, and they treated us well and we got a deal. And it was a lot of happiness after the show.
Was it fun? Would you do it again?
Yeah, it was tons of fun. We'd jump on that again in a heartbeat if we could. Just knowing the publicity that comes out of it and notoriety behind the show itself was enough in itself.
If somebody wants to get on the show and they have an idea, would you be someone they could talk to or reach out to for that? Or I'm sure you get hit up hundreds of times because of that. What's your advice you give to people who want to get on the show? Do you have any?
Yeah. I mean, now that we're on the show, a lot of people ask us, like, hey, I got this great idea. Love to go on Shark Tank. How do we get started? And, it's the same story. It's like, good luck, fill out the application, make a cool video, tell something different and make it entertaining, because it's a show before anything else. Before it's an investing platform for young companies, it's a TV show, and they need drama, and they need, something that their viewers are going to react to, and a story that, people across America are going to want to watch. So make sure that pitching it to them a certain way, make sure you try to figure out the story behind it that they're going to want to bite on.
Does it make sense to do a crowdfunding campaign before you go because you have more leverage, you can get a better deal, or is it better to just jump on Shark Tank as soon as you can? If you had an option, what would it be?
I would take either option. If you can get on the show, the publicity alone is going to, reward you handsomely. But, never discount, the power of crowdfunding and being able to pre-sell a product and, get the money for development before the product's actually produced. That can only help.
Does that give you better leverage with the sharks?
That'll increase your sales numbers. It'll get you better leverage. It's almost like a proof of concept in an online world. So where more and more customers are going to the internet to look for their goods and shying away from the big retail stores, to know that something is desired and marketable a certain way is very important in considering a business for an investment.
Now, I usually take the lead in all of these interviews, but I mean, Thomas has been a little quiet. Thomas, what do you have, if anything? Anything you'd like to ask Rob? Or
not so much a question, but one of the things that I really appreciated is, in a way, it's an audacity, right? And a courage and a faith to just say, I'm going to make this happen. When you went and you printed the backpack and went to the trade show, right? I just absolutely love that, because the flip side, and Zach and I always chat about this, it's people who talk about getting this patent and doing this and always having to fine tune it. And they're not even doing anything, and they don't even know how the market is going to respond. Like the course you took, I wish I could scream at the top of my lungs for everyone to hear. Do what Rob did. What Rob did is what everybody needs to do. Like, Rob is a smart entrepreneur, right? And that's why Rob is being successful. And then the second thing, and you'll notice, Zach, that on this podcast, as well as our last podcast, the creator is creating something to solve a pain point that he himself or herself has experienced. You got to do that. Otherwise, I mean, I suppose you can create products that's not solving a pain point. That's just an interesting idea. Case in point, Facebook, right? It's like there wasn't a pain point. It was just an interesting idea. But when you have something that really solves a pain point, and if you solve it, your revenue, and if you capture that market, your revenue is going to scale to however much that market can support. If it's a $10 million market, $100 million, $1 billion market, that's how you're going to scale. And so just listening.
And you have the story built in too. I love when you solve a pain point. Like you said, Thomas, you have that story. Rob has the perfect story that he gets to tell too. He got his stuff stolen while he was at a wedding. I mean, that's a great story that makes everybody understand the significance and the need for this product, and it's personal and it's relatable, and everybody can think about that. Now, sadly, Rob, every time I go to a wedding, I'm going to be wondering why I don't have an AquaVault.
That's an easy problem to solve.
So,
well, and what's interesting too, right? Another thought I have with what Rob has created is, typically speaking, it is hard to sell prevention, right? It's hard to sell something that says, hey, take this and you're not going to get sick, right? It's much easier to sell something that says, hey, when you're sick, take this. And so in a way, what Rob is selling is prevention, but it's something that enough people have experienced and that can be painful enough that can repeat itself. I just love the whole idea. It's brilliant. And I see products like this and I think, man, why has nobody thought of this before? So I think Rob's just done a fantastic job.
Well, Rob, anything that you want to leave as parting wisdom to Funded Today Nation? Anything else you want to talk about that maybe we didn't hit on in today's episode, or just anything else you want to share? The floor is yours.
Yeah, no, just kind of spitting off what Thomas was just saying. I mean, it's hard to sell prevention. I mean, in reality, our product is like insurance, right? It's insurance to, make sure your stuff is protected while you're on vacation. And insurance is boring, right? Insurance is like, it's no fun. Nobody wants to like pre-think about, what possibly could happen to them, or that their $1,000 smartphone is going to disappear while they're at the pool. We got to find a way to kind of, make it somewhat fun and somewhat of a cool product to try to get away from that like negativity stigma that's kind of like on the market itself. So not only are we trying to like create that market for the portable safe and some personal security travel accessories, which we're going to try to come out with a few more new really cool ones this year, but it's trying to do it in a way that's modern and it's young and it's fun, rather than on the defense where it's insurance and boring and preventative.
It feels like you've kind of struck that perfect balance to take advantage of insurance while avoiding the idea of prevention. And obviously the results speak for themselves. Speaking of your next product, Rob, I know you can't talk too much about it yet, but just for our listeners, when is it coming? What can you say? Where can they expect it? I would imagine a crowdfunding campaign is going to happen. Give me what you can on that.
This summer, we're going to be releasing 2 new products. They're going to go along with our travel security line. They're both going to be portable locking mechanisms. So, one's going to be more of a book bag style anti-theft product that you can bring with you to the pool and then bring with the gym, or use it in a lot more places that FlexSafe can go. And the other one I can't talk about is going to be really cool and have some high-tech aspects to it, but it's going to revolutionize the market that's currently out there. So keep an eye out for them summer 2019 to Kickstarter, hopefully through your guys' platform.
To Kickstarter. Excellent. Love it. All right. Well, Rob, before we close out the episode, we have a special little segment that we call Products of the Week. Thomas and I are going to talk about a product of the week, but then we want you to talk about AquaVault or FlexVault, and you'll see how we do it, and we'll just go from there. So my product of the week, Funded Today Nation, is intake breathing. This is a revolutionary breathing system, and it's really simple. Picture a nose strip, but the Web 2.0 version of this. Custom molded, a couple magnets attached to the sides of your nose, and then it spreads out your nose so that you breathe better. So if you're a snorer, my wife tells me that sometimes I'm pretty bad at that. That will solve this issue. It also helps with enhancing the way that you run or perform in whatever you're trying to do. And it also helps with improving deeper REM-like sleep. This is intake breathing. Just a little rubber strip that has magnets that attach to the side of your nose, spreads out your nose more, and turns you from a mouth breather into a nose breather. It's doing really well on Kickstarter. Already 811 backers, still 24 days to go. Pretty exciting product, and you can get it for about $20. So check it out. Intake breathing, live on Kickstarter right now. Thomas, what do you got for us?
My product of the week is probably the coolest travel adapter that I've ever seen. It basically is a travel adapter, right? So if I'm here in the States and I travel to Asia or to Europe or South America, the outlets are different. And if you haven't traveled, sometimes it's kind of a rude awakening when you travel. For those who travel frequently, they'll know that when you travel somewhere, you have to have a converter to convert your plug. And even for your cell phone, right? If you're plugging it in. So this converter basically has kind of this sliding device that allows you to switch things up, all of the outlets that you'll ever run into anywhere in the world. And then in addition to that, it also has a USB-C power adapter, like an Apple power adapter. And it also has 4 USB charging ports. So it basically combines like 3 different products into one product. It's only $34, and it's called Passport Go. And it's on Kickstarter right now. There's 26 days left as of the recording, and it's already raised $100,000. Not sure what it will end at, but I think I'm going to get one of these for myself, because when I do travel, I always don't have enough adapters, and this adapter basically will work in about 200 countries. So check it out. That's Passport Go.
All right, Rob, how can Funded Today Nation purchase AquaVault? Why should they? Or FlexVault? Tell our listeners one more time why you love your invention, and where can our listeners learn more for your product of the week, AquaVault or FlexVault or both?
FlexSafe provides the ultimate peace of mind while you're traveling. It's a portable safe that attaches to your lounge chair or other fixed objects, so you can stick your phone, your wallet, your keys, your jewelry inside, and then go for a worry-free swim. Made with 5 layers, including a level 5 slash-resistant material. It's very durable, and also makes a great gift for the traveler on your list for any holiday. And it's a product that once you use it, it'll be the first thing you pack in your bag on the next vacation.
All right. Thanks. Once again, we wanted to give a special shout out to Rob Peck for being on Get Fun Today with us. Such an inspiring story, and I think he's on to something even bigger with his newest couple of inventions. They're just getting started. So, Rob, we'll have to have you on the show again next year to see how your story continues to develop. Funded Today Nation, what did you like about this episode? What do you want us to ask our next guest? We'd love to hear from you. Please email us, leave us a comment on our website at fundedtoday.com/podcast, or give us a review. We read every one of them, and they really help keep us motivated to keep coming up with some amazing episodes for you. Now, next time, we're getting into something you've probably never heard much about, or you're probably very confused about, the legal side of business, crowdfunding, contracts, and so forth. What do you need to know? Thomas is not only an attorney with the Utah Bar, he's also our own in-house legal counsel, in addition to co-founder Funded Today. And we're going to have a really detailed episode for you on all things legal. If you've ever wanted to make sure you know how to dot every I and cross every T, and what you need to do and what's overkill, I promise you're not going to want to miss that episode. So until next Wednesday, put today's takeaways from Rob into your new business idea and watch as things blossom right before your eyes. And remember, don't wait until tomorrow. Get funded today.
Funded Today is the worldwide leader in rewards-based crowdfunding on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Combined, they have raised over $200 million and counting for thousands of new ideas and inventions worldwide. If you've got an idea for a new product or invention, visit fundedtoday.com to speak with one of their experts.